This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
The parasha says at the end, "L'zois asu lohem," this you should do for them, for the bnei hakahasi. V'choyu v'lo yamusu, they should live and not die. Begishtam es kodesh hakadoshim, when they come near the Holy of Holies. Aaron uvanav yavayu, v'samu oisam ish alavoidasai v'el masai. This you should do for them, that they should live and not die. That Aaron and his children should make sure to give everybody his specific job for what he should minister and for what he should carry. Both the Shach HaTorah, written over 500 years ago, and the Turei Zav say the same thing. Indeed, they're quoted by the Mamloyes. They say the same thing. And that is that what the Torah is worried about over here is that if there isn't positions given specifically to each one, they might come to fight over the honor of carrying, who should carry the Aron, who should carry the Shulchan, who should carry the Mizbech Hazav, who should carry the Menorah. And if they would fight in front of the Aron Kodesh, if they would fight in front of the rarefied, lofty, holy Kalim, then they could come to die. And therefore, in order, so the Torah gives us this chachma. In order that this shouldn't happen, you should be a step ahead. You should make sure that everybody beforehand has a designated job. In order, and now we read the pasuk, we see it's clearly in the pasuk. V'zois asulahem, this you should do for them. V'chayu v'lo yamusu, that they should live and not die. Begishtem es kodesh hakadoshim, when they come to the Holy of Holies. I mean, you're talking about the Aron HaKodesh. Aaron of Yavayu, they should come with some ish alavidosai v'almasai. Ahead of time, they should appoint everybody specifically, so there should be no room for disputes. There should be no room for quarrels, because says the Shach HaTorah, says the Turei Zav, if they would come chas v'shalom to ketata in front of the Aron HaKodesh, they could die. Now this has such contemporary ramifications, because nowadays our Beis HaKnesses is our Mikdash Mat. And it says as Mikdashi Tiro, so it's brought down that today this applies to our Mikdash Mat, our mini sanctuary, our Beis HaKnesses. And we have to know that if somebody comes into Shul and gets into a fight with somebody else about davening for the Yomid, what do you mean? We always daven in our family the first day Yom Tov Ma'ariv. What do you mean? I have a chiyuv, my chiyuv is bigger than yours. What do you mean? My son-in-law is here. He has a much better voice than your son. It's not even close. What are you? Don't you want to be man at Olam? And they start fighting in front of the Aron Kodesh. That could be a disaster. Could be a disaster. Hey, just a small spat. Come on, don't blow it out of proportion. Let people be people. It's only a disagreement. No. So the Gaboyim and the Rav are expected to have the foresight to try that these things should not happen. Very important. Now, it's not only about davening for the Yomid. It's also about opening or closing the window. It's also about the air conditioning. You know, there's a minig Yisrael that when it gets to be this kind of weather, people fight. What do you mean? I'm cold, close the window. I'm hot, open the window. What is it? Why is the shul set for 70? I want it to be set for 68. How could you set it for 68? Don't you care about the shul's mamonas? So, what happens? The people think it's a small thing, but they start fighting in front of the Aron Kodesh. It's a dangerous thing to fight. You have to know that when there's fights, it chases the Shekhinah away. Hashem doesn't like it. How would you like to be chased out of your own home? How would you like to be chased out of your own home? The basic Knesset is Hashem's home. And Hashem is chased out of his home if there's fighting. And somebody who chases Hashem out of his home, he's flirting with death. That's what it says. That Aaron Avanim should be there. With some ish alavidas should take care of the problem. That this shouldn't happen. Now, of course, the Rav, the Gabbai, should try to have the Chokhmah, the foresight, to be ahead of the problem, to anticipate the problem. But the real responsibility is on the people themselves, that they have to learn this lesson, that kitata, that fighting in front of the Aron Hashem in the Mikdash Ma'at, has a skull and bones on it. It's a very big sakana. Now, if this is the case, where they would fight about carrying the Aron, where they would argue in order to do a mitzvah Hashem, then what about the person that fights with the Gabbai because the Gabbai told him to be quiet in Shul? And he says to the Gabbai, who are you to talk to me that way? Who are you to tell me what to do? Now here's a person, he's talking during Kriyas HaTorah. They want to start the Haftarah and you can't hear the one who's saying the Mafta because he's talking. So the Gabbai turns to him gently and says, please be quiet. And he starts talking louder. He turns to his friend and continues talking and makes believe the Gabbai doesn't even exist on the planet. So the Gabbai turns to him in a little bit higher octave and he says, I've asked you already to please be quiet. So then the man says, who does this guy think he is? Now the Gabbai is supposed to be made of bigger stuff than to let this guy get under his skin. That's the reason why we appoint a Gabbai. And the Gabbai can't let this person get him upset, because once it gets personal, then the Gabbai isn't totally L'Shem Shemayim anymore. But let's say the Gabbai had a bad morning. He had a fight with his wife before he came to Shul. So he's already stoked up. And the Gabbai turns to him and says, listen, you're already a Rasha because you're talking during davening. You want to be a bigger Rasha now? So the man says to him, who are you calling a Rasha? You're mavazimi in public? Ein lo chelik lo ilam haba. There's a conflagration in front of the Aron. It's a tragedy. A conflagration in front of the Aron Kodesh. So this is what we're warned about over here. They're very important. We're warned over here. The Torah says that Aaron Uvanav were commanded, we want you to make appointments that when they come in there should be no squabble about who gets what, because if there's a squabble in front of the Aron Kodesh, it's dangerous. Now that's a squabble of who should carry the Aron, who should carry the menorah. Squabble about talking in Shul. That's a real danger. You have to realize, to fight in the Beis HaKnesses, you're playing with fire. It's a great lesson that we learn over here. Now the Sifurnai adds another lesson. Very practical Sifurnai. It says Al tachrisu es shevet mishpachas hakohasim. Let not the tribe of the family of Kahasi be cut down. Says the Sifurna, again, zooming in on the fact that our Novanov are supposed to make designated jobs. Says the Sifurna, and I quote verbatim, Al tanichu es hamasois ba'ofen sheyizka behem kol ha'kodim. Don't make it with a rule, kol ha'kodim zachar. Whoever comes first gets to carry. The 4 people that come first get to carry the Aron. Don't do that. Now, why not? Because if you do that, then people are going to push, people are going to shove. Because if so, ki bezeh yikra shi yitchafu zeh ez zeh. They'll push one another. Vichalu es hakodesh. And they'll desecrate the Kodesh. V'zeh siba, and this would be a siba for them, la'achrisam, for them to die. So don't make it a first come, first serve. Don't make it that they should dash. If you make it dash, people will push each other. People push each other? Oh, that's a sakana. That's a sakana that somebody's going to get hurt. If people push each other, you push each other in front of the Aron Hashem, that's the way you do. You behave in front of the Aron Hashem? You have to realize that even what we do, because of the zealousness for mitzvahs, but that's not the way you behave in front of the Aron Hashem. Here you have people go, the Rebbe is giving tish in the Beis HaMedrash. And everybody comes running because they want to go and be as close to the Rebbe as possible. So the person runs, and in the process, he knocks down a child, he pushes an old man. You do that, it's Yotze Skara B'Hafseidai. It's a Skara B'Hafseidai. You come into the shir, you want to get, Rebbe Weiss is starting, you want to hear every word that he says. The person is trying to park, and you back in. He was there first, but you back in. Why? Because you want to go to the shir. Can't do that. Can't do that. Yotze Skara B'Hafseidai. So therefore, make appointments. Aaron, Bonov, designate positions, because we can't have first come, first serve. It's first come, first serve. It's going to lead to Chil Hashem. Now we're going to talk now about a very important topic. A very important topic. The CD should be listened to by the next generation. V'lo yavo lirois kivala es hakodesh b'meis. The Torah says and cautions the Kohanim that we know that there were coverings for the Klei HaKodesh, for the Aron, for the menorah. There were coverings, and the Kohanim are warned that they should cover it before the Leviim come. V'lo yavo lirois kivala es hakodesh, that the Leviim shouldn't come to see it while it's being swallowed, while it's being covered, because if they feast their eyes on the holy Kalim V'Meis, says the Yalkut Shemaini, Hashem is very concerned to protect the people of Kahas. He's taking extra precautions. He's warning us in the Torah, and he's warning the Kohanim, be very careful. We don't want to risk the lives of the Kahasi. Says the Yalkut, you know why the Rebbeinu Shalom is being so careful with the Kahasi? The came on the Kahas, Isaac L'Kfay Kedushas Ha'aron. Since Kahas is involved in the honor of the Torah, so therefore, Dog HaKadosh Baruch Hu L'Toivasa. V'chein, and likewise, kol misha shakua b'kavod HaTorah, whoever is submerged in the honor of Torah v'loimdea, and those that learn it, HaKadosh Baruch Hu da'ig lahem. Hashem worries about it. If a person is careful with Kavod HaTorah, Hashem worries about them. So now fasten your seatbelts. I'm going to tell you a story now. It's a story that happened in far-off Tunisia. It's a story that happened in far-off Tunisia. It's recorded in the Sefer Achroin HaGa'onim Tunisia. The story took place in Tunisia, and it involved the chief rabbi of Tunisia. The chief rabbi at that time was a great tzaddik and a gaon by the name of Rav Tzemach Tzarfasi. That was the chief rabbi of Tunisia, Rav Tzemach Tzarfasi. After most people are tucked into bed and deep in dream world, Rav Tzemach Tzarfasi was already getting up at Chatzos in order to cry, Tikkun Chatzos, and learn, as the Rambam says, Lo nitla Torah, lo nitla Laila, lo limad Torah. So he got up at Chatzos, say Tikkun Chatzos, and to learn. And he's sitting and learning, and suddenly a wind comes, a gust comes, and blows out the candle. He can't learn that. Blow out the candle, he can't learn. So he looks around the house for a gaffer, for a coal, for an ember to light the candle, and he can't. He's looking, he can't find a light. Now nowadays, a person is ready to lahavdil, to listen to the World Series on the radio, and he can't find a battery. He's like, well, listen to the World Series, I can't find a battery. He's gone crazy. It's his team, he wants to listen, can't find a battery. There's a person who's going to go to the country, can't find his car keys. He's going Meshuggah, has a weekend in the country, can't find his car keys. Lahavdil, Rav Tzemach, the chief rabbi, has a whole night ahead of him of learning. He's swarm all around him. He's planning a whole night of Gan Eden, and he can't find a light. And it's so many hours to the morning. He's fretting. It's wasted moments of Torah Kedosha that can never be recovered. And then he remembered, the big bakery is open the whole night. He'll go to the bakery, and he'll get a light. It's a Goyish bakery, but the factory is open in the night. So in the middle of the night, the chief rabbi is wandering the streets. He walks to the bakery. Of course, it's shut. There's a big, massive door with a heavy bolt on the inside. He's knocking on the door to let him in. The night watchman is fast asleep. He's in sweet dream world. But the Rav is knocking and knocking and knocking. He wakes him up. Man says, who's coming at this hour of the night? Not coming for a bilkala. So he opens the door and he sees the chief rabbi. Everybody knows the chief rabbi. So he was a Muslim. Even this Muslim opened the door and said, Rabbi, what could I do for you? He says, I need a light. My light went out. I'm learning Torah. I'm learning our holy books. Please, could you do me the kindness of giving me a light? So the man was very happy to help the rabbi. He takes out a piece of wood, gives him a light, and the rabbi happily goes on his way, but wouldn't you know it, as he's returning home, a gust of wind comes and blows out the light. So, he's not deterred, he turns around, goes back. Now the Muslim already went lying back in bed, but he wasn't asleep yet. He is banging again. He sees the chief rabbi. He had respect for the chief rabbi. He opens the door. It's a heavy bolt. You hear him creching to lift the heavy bolt. He opens the door. He said, Rabbi, what's the matter? The fire blew out. So he says, okay. He lights it for him again. And the rabbi thanks him profusely. Thank you very much. And he goes again. And wouldn't you know it, again there's a gust of wind. And it blows it out a second time. The rabbi has a whole night of learning. Every moment, which is Shokol Keneged Kol HaTorah Kula. He turns around, and for the third time, he bangs on the door. Now we're ready. This is going on. You know, the night watchman says, I have to sleep. I mean, this could go on the whole night. So he decides not to answer it. But the Rav, a whole night of Torah, he keeps on banging. So finally, the night watchman comes. There's a hole to talk. He says, Rabbi, you know, the bolt is very, very heavy. So the Rav, feeling what he put the night watchman through, takes his hand, puts it on the head of the Muslim, and he says the following blessing. He says, listen to this. Yiratzain shetizke la'oisha Rav kemishkal kaira kvedazu. May it be the will of Hashem that you should be zeicha to great wealth like the heaviness, equal the heaviness of this being. As soon as the Rav was known that his words came true, as soon as the Muslim heard this, his whole attitude changed. He lifted up the beam like it was a feather. This time, he lit the torch. He didn't wait that the Rav should take it home. He escorted the Rav to his house. And he goes back to the bakery. The next day, mamash, a man comes to the bakery, to this watchman. The watchman had a reputation as being a reliable person. Comes to the watchman, and he says to him, how much money do you make a week? He says, I make 5 real. That was the currency. 5 real a week. So he says, well, I need you for a few days. I offer you 25 real a day. No, excuse me, he said he made 5 real a day. He says, I offer you 5 times as much, 25 real a day for a few days. So the man said right away, yes. Told the owner of the bakery, I have to take off a few days. So the man takes the shomer, takes out a cloth, and he blindfolds him. And he takes him on a trip to a small rickety house. He unblindfolds him. They come in the house, it's full of pictures on the wall. The man goes to one of the pictures, moves it aside, and there's a secret door behind the picture. He opens the door, and lo and behold, there's a whole bunch of sacks of golden coins. And then there's chests. He says, I need you to transfer the gold in certain amounts into these chests. And for this, I'm paying you. So the shomer enjoyed handling money, never handled such golden coins, and he transferred it, and he worked there for a few days. Afterwards, the man told him, you were very reliable. He paid him even more than he promised him. And the shomer was very happy. He got a windfall. He blindfolded him again and took him home. Okay. A few weeks later, a governmental agent passed by the town. Hear ye. A man died suddenly, and there's a small home available on auction for anybody who comes up with the biggest offer. The shomer heard this, and he said, could it be that the small home is that little house that I went to? And that's the rabbi's blessing? He said, let me see. And he goes to the auction, and it's a rickety little house. It's that house. Who's offering that? Who wants a rickety little house? So he had the money that he just made, all those reals, and he outbid everybody. He bought the house. Trembling, he walks into the house and he sees the picture. He moves the picture, he opens up the door, and there's all the boxes full of gold. All his. Now you might say, Rabbi Weiss, how do we know all the details of this story? How do we know? It's a good question. I was wondering also. So the Sefer records that towards the end of the life of Rav Tzemach Tzarfasi, he went on Aliyah to Eretz Yisrael. And on his trip to Eretz Yisrael, he stopped to rest in Istanbul. And as he was resting in Istanbul, a Muslim sheikh passed by. And he saw Rav Tzemach, and he stopped him, and he said, "You are the great Rav Tzemach Tzarfasi." He says, "Yes, I am. How do you know me? I've never been in Istanbul." He says, "You don't recognize me." He says, "I'm the watchman that you gave a blessing to. Now I'm fabulously wealthy. Please come, as you are resting, come to my palace, to my armon." It was a sheikh, he had a palace. He brought him into the palace, and he said, he bent down and he kissed Rav Tzemach's feet, and he says, "All what I have is because of your blessing." And he told Rav Tzemach the whole story. And he gave Rav Tzemach enough money to live comfortably in Eretz Yisrael. The lesson of this story is somebody that does for Loin Day Torah, even a guy, even a Muslim, is rewarded in incredible ways. He got his own Fort Knox. That's the reward of those that do for the Torah and for those that learn it. Now listen carefully. What I'm going to say has to be said. And if it's not said during Yemei Svira, when 24,000 Talmidei Rabbi Akiva passed away because they were not Noye covered, then when is it going to be said? And the lesson that it was the 24,000 Talmidei Rabbi Akiva means that finer mention are vulnerable to this kind of behavior. Because Talmidei Rabbi Akiva were the best of the best. So that means that it's a weakness. It's a weakness in fine people. A lack of kavod. Now, that's true at the time of Rabbi Akiva, then especially Bizmanenu, when it says, Be'ikfasa de Mashiach, chutzpah yazga. In the time of Mashiach, chutzpah will increase, brazenness, arrogance. There is a new trend. It used to be that people that didn't want to hear the Rav's drasha would try to create a shul without a Rav. Somebody told me recently, you know what the attraction of this shul is that there's no drashas. That's the attraction. It's almost like saying, you know what the attraction of this shul is? There's no davening. An observer made the following comment, that it used to be in Amalekite Zeiten, it used to be that people came to shul to talk to Hashem. Nowadays, people come to shul to meet their friends. davening and the drasha is a distraction. And if you have a little bromfin, the social activity is even more enjoyable. That's what happened. So it used to be that in order to get around the rabbi's drasha, they created minyanim without a rabbi. A basement minyanim, breakaway minyanim. Now, people actually don't want to leave. The shul is nice. It has good air conditioning. It's close to their house. They don't want to have the oil, the yoke of taking care of a shul. After all, it's an obligation. They don't have a rich sugar daddy that wants not to leave the house and has a basement. So now there's a new idea, a new einfach. No more drasha before Musaf. The drasha should be after that. And people will decide if they want to stay. I mean, why should we be captive? Who are you to tell me that I have to listen? It's the best of both worlds. Make the drasha after davening. Whoever wants to will stay. And maybe you'll decide some weeks to stay, some weeks not. What a chutzpah. It's the antithesis of Kavod HaTorah. That the rabbi gets up after Shir HaKavod to speak, and 25 families walk out. What have we created? What have we created? A public display of anti-Kavod to the Rav. But it's even more than that. Because you know who are the big losers? The big losers are the children. They're taken out from listening to the Rav. And they get a tutelage of walking out on the Rav. What a terrible thing. And this is becoming a new trend, Rabbi say. What an arrogance. You have to know that there's a reason why the Rav's drasha is in a captive situation. Because it teaches people to be mekabel the moras of the Rav, to accept the authority of the Rav. You know, when a person lo yaleinu has to be hospitalized, he gets into a hospital gown. Now, a hospital gown is not a sneer sticker thing. Okay, if the person has to have a catheter, it's one thing. But if not, why does everybody have to let everybody have a pair of pajamas? Because it's a subliminal way to be mekabel the moros of the doctors and the nurses. That's why it's done. There's a reason. People come in, they sit down, they listen to the Rav, they're accepting the authority of the Rav. The children learn to give cover to the Rav. We have to know, and we have to know. Think about this Maisu in Tunisia with this Muslim. That if a person shows covered to Torah of Landau, the rewards are great. And as the Yalkut says, Hashem says, I protect those that give cover to the Torah. The reverse is too frightening to think. But there are movements about this. And they are embraced by smart people. Yeah, I think it's right. Why should people have to stay? They have other things to do. Their wives are waiting for them. Maybe they're not interested for what the rabbi has to say. Now why? It's such an obviously blatant chutzpah. Why is it that so many people accept this? So you have to know the Alter from Sabatka said an interesting thing. He said, Midas Shafen Deis. Which that means is people's Midas create and form their opinions. Midas Shafen Deis. So you could have a person who is by nature not punctual, and that creates his opinion that, you shouldn't have in a clock, in a shul, a clock. You make people nervous, it's too rigid. Then there is such a philosophy. But that's Midas Shafen Deis. His midah is he's not punctual, so that helps to forge his opinion on the matter. So we have now a society that has no patience. No patience. We have a society that communicates in cryptic comments. Somebody sends you a text. Could we meet at 10 o'clock for breakfast tomorrow? The person sends a one-word answer. But he doesn't even send okay. He just sends the letter K. So it's in one-word answers, and even the one word is truncated. Because people have no patience. So when you have no patience, so you're not interested to sit by a 15-minute rush that's holding you back from your chalent. So you create an opinion. Why should we be captive? Who does he think he is? That's Midas Shafen Deis. Hey, but that's a terrible thing. You know what you're keeping away from children? The children! Children have to hear what the rabbi has to say. Sha'al avicha v'yagedcha. Ask your father, he will tell you. Those are the days where the father knew what to say. But nowadays the father doesn't have the time. He doesn't have the strength. He comes home. He wants to relax, unwind, and get into bed after the child before the fumes wear off. He doesn't have time. So we have Zekeinecha v'yomer lov. Zekeinecha zekana Torah. It's the rabbi. What happens? You have a shul, and there's a family. They get into a disagreement with another balabas. They don't want to deal with it, so they go into one of the breakaways in a basement. And their 7 children grow up their entire youth without hearing one word from a Rav. You know what this father robbed his children of? Or the man that walks out after the shir, Shul Yoim, and says, let's get out of here before he starts. Do you know what the children miss out on? I mean, just a little sampling. The Rav encourages people to avoid Lashon Hara, to avoid lying, to avoid revealing secrets, to purge their hearts of anger, not to take vengeance, not to bear a grudge, to work on laziness, to avoid Bittul Torah, to work on Shalom Bayis, to work on Chinuch Habanim, to pay attention to Kibbud Avim, to do business faithfully, to try to make a Kiddush Hashem, to avoid a Chilul Hashem, to have Kavanah in Tefillah, to be careful in Tzedakah, to work on Shmiras Einayim, to work on health. That's just mamish, a tiny little drop of the things that the Rav speaks about, and here he takes it all away from his children and makes a getaway. What a tragedy. What a tragedy. And we're not going to talk about Kavod HaTorah during Sphira, where there were 24,000 korbanos with the worst death of diphtheria. When are we going to talk about it? The Sefer HaMitzvos HaKotzer of the Chofetz Chaim, the 16th mitzvah, is one that we would really right away not associate with this. But the 16th mitzvah is Uvoi Sidbak. You should cleave to him. So the Gemara says, how do you cleave to him? Haloy Hashem Eish Oich Lahu. So the Gemara says, Be Mizdabek B'Talmidei Chachamim. It's a mitzvah d'oraisa, the 16th mitzvah, to be Mizdabek B'Talmidei Chachamim. As the Chofetz Chaim says, V'udveikis B'Chachamim, Sheyisabek Ba'afar Ragleim Shel Talmidei Chachamim, V'yishte B'tzoma Es Divreyim, and to drink with thirst their words, not to dash out and to complain that you don't want to be a captive audience. V'yishte B'tzoma Es Divreyim. And for many people who are busy the whole week, non-stop, their chance to dveikas chachamim and to listen to tzama l'divrayim is the rabbi's drasha. To get close to a rabbi, to get close to a rab. Listen to the chinuch, the master of the mitzvahs. The chinuch writes, Shoreish ha-mitzvah, the root of the mitzvah of l'dov kaboy, is kedei shenilmoid lodas darchei Hashem, that you should learn to know the ways of Hashem. That's dveikus with chacham. That's the rabbi's drasha. So the rabbi last week, he talked about amelus b'Torah. The rabbi starts preparing people for Shavuos, and he starts talking about Rus. And he tells them, Megillah Zu, Ein Bo Lo Yisrael Lo Yeta Lo Tuma V'Tara. It's there to teach you Schar Gadol L'Goyim Lo Chasodim. And he teaches everybody that Torah has to be a Torah's chesed, and he talks about examples of what you could do for the shul, to put away the svarim, to bring a bar of soap into the bathroom, to bring tissues for the people, to help bring flowers into the shul. Says the chinuch, the mitzvah, the rice of the dov kabay, that people want to do away with. Take the drasha afterwards so we can make a getaway. That we shouldn't be inflicted by it. We should rob our children from it. The mitzvah is kedei shenilmod l'das darchei Hashem. And the chinuch then goes on and says, and a scary thing, for over as I'll say, if somebody is over on this, the einay miskaber imam, and he doesn't join with chachamim, mevatel asay zez, mevatel this mitzvah asay, va'oinshei chamar ma'oy, and the penalty is very great. Hashem Yerachim. Then the Yalkut Shimoni says, you know what you get if you get close to your Rav and you daven for him in Ala Tzadikim and you listen to his words? You know what you get? It says, Keshem shematzilim b'Shabbos. You know, there are limits to what you're allowed to take out from a burning house, le'aleinu, on Shabbos. Keshem shematzilim b'Shabbos. Tikka Sefer im HaSefer. You can take the mantle of the Sefer Torah together with the Sefer Torah. Why? Hayol v'zochel li'idabek b'Sefer HaKodesh. Since the mantle is attached to the Sefer HaKodesh. Kain kol mi shemadbik atzmei l'tzadik Zoicha liyos kamayu. Somebody attaches himself to the Rav, to the Tzaddik, is zoicha to be like him and to have his protection. The Yalkut then goes on and says, Afilu the begodim of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were not singed when they were thrown in the Kivshin Shalesh by Nebuchadnezzar. There wasn't a smell of smoke on the garments of Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah because they were medabik to the tzaddikim. And then there's a Tosfos in Zvachim on Daf Nun Tes Amud Beis. Tosfos says that the Nesiim gave the Agolim, the calves, for the Mishkan. Says those calves lived for 480 years. It's a Tosfos as well. Holy cow! Holy cow! These calves lived for 480 years to be by the Malchus Shel Shlomo. Why? Because they were medabik with the Shechina. The next time you think of walking out on a Rav's Drush, it's an opportunity of Sidbak. L'daf kaboy. Yes, we live in a time where people are very cynical. The rabbi, he didn't work that hard on the speech. I think I heard it already. It's a cynical time. But there's a lot to learn from the Rav. And it's important for the children to hear it. And it's important for the children to have respect for authority. You're the ultimate authority in their lives. If you teach them not to respect authority, it's going to boomerang on you one time. Chas v'shalom. Now, before I get off the topic of covet, I would be remiss not to mention that as we are in the time of covet, emphasis on covet, on respect, we have to remember that the Torah expects us to give tremendous respect to our spouse. This is not in the American culture. The idea of respect for a spouse is not highlighted at all in America. At the very most, it's a partnership. At the very most, it's an enjoyment of love. But respect, that's not mentioned in our culture at all. We have to know that the Gemara Yevamah says that a husband is expected he should honor her more than himself. We know this because in the Ksuva he pledges, I will work and I will honor her. You have to honor everybody. You have to honor everyone. So if it says you're going to honor her, it means, why do you have to pledge? You honor everyone. I have to honor her more than everyone. Now, since you have to honor everyone like yourself, so that means you have to honor her more than yourself. So here's a person that has a ringer on his phone, special for when his wife calls. And it goes off loud. Warning, it's the wife! Warning, it's the wife! And everybody at work hears that. Warning, it's the wife! Let me ask you something. Even if it's funny, is that mechabda yoyse megufa? Do you think he would like if he knows that his wife was sitting and playing mahjong and her cell phone went off? Warning, it's the husband! Warning, it's the husband! You think that's mechabda yoyse megufa? We talk about respect. It's not a one-way street. The Rambam says that a wife should treat her husband like a melech, like a king. It's reciprocal. He honors her more than himself, and she treats him like a king. Now, you know where we learned this out the first time? Chumash Bereshis and Sefer Yesharim, because it's studying the laws of the Yosher. We just learned in the Daf. One shot that year was called Chodesh Ziv, because it's the first month after the shining people were born. There's many of that the Avos were born in Nisan, and year is Chodesh Ziv because it's the first month after the people that shone were born. The others shone. What does it mean they shone? Their behavior shone a light on the world. So it says that when Avram pitched camp, it says Vayet Oholoi. He pitched his tent, but it's spelled Aleph Hey Lamed Hey. So Rashi says because Vayet Oholoi, he first pitched her tent, Sarah's tent, and only then his tent. Because he was Mechabda Yais Megufa. He said, it's an obvious question. So if he pitched her tent first, so it should say Vayet Oholoi. Why does it say Vayet Oholoi? Why do we pronounce it Vayet Oholoi? The answer is he pitched her tent first. But when he did it as if it was his. It's not, let me take care of her and then I'll get to me. Then I'll take care of myself. No. When he took care of her, wasn't Siyot Zayin. He did hers as if it was a haloi, with the care he would do for himself. Torah is teaching us respect. Never should a person say a joke in public at the expense of his wife, at the expense of her husband. She enjoys telling her story over when they were first married and her husband did something. It was funny, but it's very embarrassing, the story to the husband. But everybody's laughing. But she's saying it at the expense of her husband. That's not respect. That's not respect. Kili Kol Bechar, we all know that the mitzvah of Pidyon Haben is a very choshev, a mitzvah, Pei Dalet Tanesim. Merum is right away in the beginning of the parish of the Torah. Bereshis is Ben Rishon Achar Shloshim Yom and Tifteh. Yoel Shabeach tells a story of a Chiloni, of a non-religious Jew who had his firstborn, and he wasn't going to make a Pidyon Haben, but his religious relatives, in a sweet way, told him, do you know how rare it is? Do you know what a special mitzvah it is? We'll help you with it. And because they weren't critical, and because they did it in such a sweet way, he agreed to make a Pidyon Haben. The night before, he was doing some last-minute shopping, and he was coming home via I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. There's an Israeli that knows the Geha Bridge. Anybody familiar with that bridge? It's called the Geha. He was going over the Geha Bridge, and just as he was crossing the Geha Bridge, a suicide bomber detonated a bomb by a bus stop under the bridge. He was riding on top of the bridge, and something hard came and smashed through his window, and because of that, he gave a sudden break. You know what came through his window? The head of the Arab. The head of the Arab flew off, and it came through his window, into his window. And right in front of him, the whole blood, the metal of the bridge came flying up. If he would have gone an inch further, he would have been blown to smithereens. But the head of the bomber itself came through his window and saved his life because he braked because of it. Because he did a Pidyon Haben. Chayne Malach Hashem Saviv Li'Reya Vayichaltzim. When we do a mitzvah, we get protection. Ki Malachot Yitzav Alach L'Shmorcha B'chol Dracheh. You know, there's a beautiful custom that people have, that when they go on a business trip, they make Hashem their partner. They want to have atzlacha. So they say, Hashem, I want to make you a business partner because I know that if you're a partner, my business is not going to suffer. So make Hashem a partner. I believe that the origin of this custom is from Yaakov. Because that's what Yaakov did. Yaakov said, Im yiya Hashem imodi, ushmarani, and he protects me b'derech, then kol asher titein li aser asrenu lach. I'm going to make you a partner. You have 10% shares in my business. Ahead of time, he made Hashem a partner. So they bring down, it's a true story, it was a businessman who, whenever he went on a business trip, he made Hashem his partner, and a certain amount of the proceeds would go to tzedakah. Hashem was his partner, and Hashem had shares in his business. So he writes that he had a job, a deal, in the back towns of Africa. Traveled to Africa, and here he is on the road, walking, and all of a sudden a big black man comes, and he sees the black man is angry, he's not stable, and he got very frightened. And the black man looked like he was ready to throttle him. And the last minute he backed off and walked away. About 15 minutes later he comes and there's a swarm of police and officials with guns and riot gear. And they looked at him and they said, "Did you meet anybody?" He said, "Yeah, I met this big black man." He said, "You're still alive?" He said, "Why?" He said, "The black man is a notorious murderer. He's insane. He behaves at least insane. And he's escaped from the penitentiary. He's already killed 2 people since he's escaped." They caught him and they asked him, "Did you meet that person?" He said, "Yes." So how come you didn't hurt him? So how could I hurt him? He had bodyguards on either side. He didn't have any bodyguards. He didn't have any bodyguards. Ki malochav yitzav lishmorcha b'chol asher teileh. Person makes Hashem a partner. Makes Hashem a partner. He has bodyguards, divine bodyguards. I want to conclude could I have one of the pickups? One of the albums. No, the album. Yeah, thank you. A reminder, Rabbi say that after the shir, anybody who wants my set of Pirkei Avos, it's 12 CDs. 12 CDs. Each CD is 80 minutes on the entire Pirkei Avos and every Mishnah for $36. I mean, it's a steal. 12 CDs for $36. Perfect for Sphira listening and as for a present as well. And for country travel, that'll be available after the shir. Last week's shir, B'chukaisai, Pesach Sheni and everything is available. There's a shir on Bamidbar from 5769 that's available. I hope that this week's shir will be available. We'll see what kind of mood the machine is in. Before we conclude, I want to share with you some sefer. It says, Tzvo u'pikudeyem, the hosts and the numbers of Binyamin were 35,000, 35,000, Ba'abames, 35,400. The Shalah HaKadosh cites that the Ramban says that there's 10 psukim that is a special skula for Devarim Tovim to be said on Motzei Shabbos. One of the 10 psukim is this pasuk. It's an unusual pasuk. Utzvayu f'kudeyam chamishim v'shloishim elef v'abameis. 35,400. It's a skula. So the Chassam Sofer starts doing an analysis. Why should that pasuk be a skula? And the Chassam Sofer writes that it has to be al pi soid. There's no pashut reason why the pasuk should be a skula. The tape people are going to be annoyed about this. No special reason why it should be a skula. So the Chassam Sofer says, I think we should rewind the tape a drop so that they'll hear this. I'm putting on the tape the answers so the people shouldn't be. It's a little truncated. We're trying to figure out why 35,400 is a skula. So before the tape runs out, the Chassam Sofer says that a person is supposed to say 100 brachas every day. There are 354 days in a lunar year. 354 times 100 is 35,400. That's a very big thing. To have 35,400 brachas. Now the Chassam Sofer says, why Binyamin? Because Binyamin is the place of the Beis HaMikdash. And by the Beis HaMikdash it says, Kisham tziva Hashem es habrach. You want to have good things? Have a year, 354 days of 100 brachas, that's 35,400. Ubekol mokom asher asker eshmi ovo yelecho ve'irachticha. Now, Yoleinu L'Shabeach quotes a Rambam. The Rambam says there's an Inyan limnois to count the 100 brachas. Now, what is that about? You should count the brachas. Now, I said 3 Shemoneh Esreis. That's 57 brachas. I benched and I made an Netilas Yadayim and Amoitzi. That's another 6 brachas. I count your brachas. Why count them? So, the Aleinu L'Shabeach says, just like it says that Hashem counts us because He loves us, so too, if we learn to love our blessings, what does it mean to love our blessings? You know, it says, Mo Hashem Elikecha shoyel me'imav ki im liyira. The Gemara Menachos says, Al tikrei mo elameya. What does Hashem ask to make 100 brachas? We owe so much to Hashem, and this is what He wants from us. We have to love it. After all, this is the fulfillment of our name, Yehudim. We're people that give thanks. Mo Hashem Elikecha shoyel me'imav al tikrei mo elameya. It takes a little habit. I'm going to try to start it for Linda myself, to start counting. This is the meaning of count your blessings. Count the blessings. And I said 3 brachas HaShachar and 2 brachas on the tefillin and 1 bracha on tzitzis, and you go through it, you start counting your blessings. Count your blessings, fulfillment of the Rambam. Mida keneged Mida, when we're Shakua in the blessings, Kol Mokom Asher Asker Eshmi Over Elecha Mida keneged Mida V'rachticha, we get divine blessing. Remember what Rav Miller used to say? He would say, if you said 100 times a day, bozo, by the end of the day you think about bozo. You make 100 brachas with kavanah, by the end of the day you're thinking about Hashem. That's the purpose. That's the road to Yira, to be aware of Hashem. In the merit of our blessings, in the merit of our honor of Torah, we should be zeicha to all the brachas of the Torah. Maras will be.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.